G'day and welcome back to another DBZ Dokkan Battle video. So in this video we are going to take a look at the new IDBH stage that was added in for the Global Dokkan Anniversary, and we're going to be taking on the representatives of Universe 7, or well, the Universe 7 squad. So basically the mission requirements for this stage are that you complete it with 3 Universe 11 units and 3 Universe 7 units. Universe 6 units. So you need to create a pretty specific team. The best lead for this team is going to be Jiren. The strength Jiren is going to be the best lead. The tech hit could technically operate as a lead, but he's going to take a lot of damage. So I would definitely run a strength Jiren if you have him, and then run him alongside the LR counterpart Jiren, who is a Universe 11 and a Reps of Universe, and a Universe Survival Saga lead. The rest of the team is mainly comprised up, obviously, of a collection of units. We've got the free-to-play Casserelle, who is going to act as a floater. He supports the Universe 11 category and stacks defense, so we're hoping that if we stack enough attacks on him, he should be fine throughout the entire event. Then we have the Int Topper. Int Topper guards against all attacks when there's another Universe 11 category unit in the rotation, so that's really going to help us in terms of mitigating damage, because as these events go along, guarding really helps, because it means you don't have to stack defense to such a high point. Obviously having a high defense will help, but you don't need to inherently stack it all the way to a super high point. So that is one thing. Then of course we have the strength Jiren. He's got pretty solid defense. He links up really well with the tech Jiren, but we're gonna float him ideally. And then of course we have the Universe 6 category units, the strength Kale being our 1 unit with the tech Caulifla. Obviously these guys are a potent defensive combination together. Tech Caulifla essentially will dodge every single attack just because the enemy is on the Reps of Universe 7, which means they're under the Universal Survival Saga, which means that she'll be able to dodge all of them pretty easily, because in her passive she automatically dodges Pure Saiyans and Universal Survival Saga enemies. Then of course we have the Strength Kale when alongside the Tech Caulifla. Or any Caulifla, but when alongside Tech Caulifla, she's going to guard every attack. They both stack defense and stack attack, and then we're going to float the Strength Kefla off rotation, because she needs a couple orbs to activate her full passive, but once she's fully transformed she will have innate evasion, so we shouldn't have too much of a problem there. The only other mission is to complete the event in 24 turns or less. I think we just miss out in this video here, so we could have probably got there. Just depends on a little bit more luck with crits, etc. But essentially we are going to just miss out on it, but you could definitely get it with this team. If you got I got another dupe in Kefla later on, so I could have retried it and then probably would have made it, because she is a high source of damage, especially when you can get part of her hidden potential system going. In terms of pairings, obviously we're running the Int Topper alongside the LR Jiren. The strength Jiren is okay, but he really does, he stays at 1 point. He's got like a high starting defense, especially on this team, but he kind of stays at 1 point, because he doesn't stack defense on a super attack or anything, so he's not really got a way to increase that defense. You could link him with Tech Jiren, which would result in a defense increase because they share a lot of links, but in reality it's not necessarily worth it. Int Topper only activates, or he gains an additional attack and defense of 80% when there are 3 or more Universe 11 units on the team, which is why we take the Tech Universe 11 Jiren. We also take him because he's very, very good. He's got the super effective against all types, and he's very strong defensively throughout. He also does a large amount of damage, so he's pretty strong. Of course, one thing that we do want to keep in mind when we're running this team is just the fact that, essentially Kefla, Strength Jiren, and the Tech Jiren are the units that are probably defensively weakest. And they're not defensively weak units, it's just that they are essentially the liabilities as we go up higher throughout the event. But, we obviously handle it quite fine. What we have brought is we've brought a Whis, and we've brought some regeneration and health in the form of Princess Snake, and that should keep us covered throughout the rest of the event. We will be able to heal with same type orbs once the defense on units like Strength Kale, and on the Casserelle and on the Tech Caulifla increases up, and that should keep us above board. The evasion on Kefla should also keep us pretty safe overall. Obviously, we fought a couple bosses already, but essentially Krillin, the AGL Krillin, he was immune to sealing. The Int Tien was immune to stunning and sealing. The physical Roshi was immune to stunning and sealing. So nothing too crazy so far. Obviously, as we go up, they gain more and more buffs. The Int Piccolo right now, he's immune to sealing, stunning, and immune to attack lowering. So we're starting to run out of options to activate the effective against all types from Jiren. But fortunately, this is the last Int unit, so it's pretty much the last unit that we need his effective against all types active for the most part. But his big crits will really help us out. And any damage from Kefla will be really great. Once Kefla gets to this transformation, her evasion kicks in naturally, so she's, pretty powerful. It also helps her out defensively. If you activate 6 additional orbs, she will fire off additional attacks. She will increase her offensive output. So overall, pretty damn good from Kefla. She's a main source of our damage. Another one being Strength Kale, because of all her additional attacks and the fact that she stacks her attack at quite a decent rate with all those additional attacks. And if you build her with a high chance to crit, she should come out perfectly fine. So yeah, that's pretty much the entire team in forms of build and everything. Obviously, something else that we want to bear in mind is just that, when you're building these type of teams, what kind of alternatives are there? On the Universe 11 side, you could use AGL Dispo. After his recent EZA, he is okay. The only real issue with him is he does take some time to build up, and he never really hits the exact heights of the other units. And then, of course, there is Strength Toppo, who you can actually bring along with the Int Toppo. He's a super solid, viable option. He gains damage reduction when health falls below a certain threshold, and he can buff the entire rotation, which is obviously super helpful. So he is a very viable option for that. But yeah, the main issue we're going to have with this current team build that I have is essentially we're very reliant on a couple units for damage. We need Tech Jiren to crit, we need the Strength Kefla to crit and to get additional attacks, we need Caulifla and we need Kale to crit and get their additional attacks. So yeah, we're very reliant on certain units for damage, and that's not necessarily something you want in these events, especially when you're racing against time. But yeah, the Android 18 here, she's immune to attack reduction, defense reduction, can't be sealed, can't be stunned. So pretty standard affair from this point onwards. That's basically what they're all gonna have, plus maybe 1 or 2 gimmicks from here on. The biggest threat to our team will be the AGL Vegeta, the 7th unit. Obviously we have quite a few strength units in the form of Jiren and in the form of Kefla, and they're some of our weakest defensively, so that is going to be a bit of a problem for us. Obviously, Dokkan attacks will help out in terms of healing and getting some damage in. With the Dokkan attack, make sure that you get all 7 of the little Gedinktes. That's basically going to let you make the attack dish out a lot more damage and heal you a bit more and everything. I think each single little Z panel activates one condition of the Dokkan attack, but I don't want to, say that and then be corrected or whatever. But yeah, basically that is the story. I know they are effective against all types Dokkan attacks, which is why they tend to do so much more damage. Obviously, you get the healing the turn after, so pretty awesome. From a defensive point of view, this team is very, very solid. In terms of these long form events being anything realistically over 7 turns, you kind of want to have kind of teams that have a bit of defensive stacking in them. This is so that you can create brick walls, essentially, for you to build your team around or heal with or anything like that. They'll really just kind of, let you control the fight a lot more. Otherwise, you can alternatively just run units like Topo that consistently guard. That's obviously always going to help, but I mean, you can't build an entire team with guard. I mean, essentially you could, but it would just maybe probably take you a very long time to essentially finish the stage. There are ways to speedrun these stages. I mean, you can definitely do them a lot faster than I am right now. Teams like the Kamehameha team, the Final Trump Card team, and all those type of teams will essentially finish the stage a lot faster. But what I try and do is I try to finish the team category mission requirements, and then when I try to finish them, I try to finish them without any LRs on my side. I could have used the LR, Kale, and Caulifla. They definitely would have assisted. Their additional attacks, the fact that they stack damage, their evasion, they would have definitely been a better option than my single dupe Kefla, because they have a dupe in them or two dupes in them, and so they have quite a decent chance to crit, and all those additional attacks basically means that they're really going to be stacking up the damage quite quickly. Well, not stacking up the damage, racking up the damage, because they don't stack damage, they only stack defense. But yeah, in terms of, events, IDBH and all that, I think IDBH falls into this nice category of being a long form event that you can bring these kind of defensive stacking teams to, or things like that, or use these units that, like the LR Vegeta Blue Strength, or Gogeta Blue Strength, or the LR Tech Vegeta Blue. All these units that take a couple turns, and when I mean a couple turns, I mean like 4 or 5 rotations just to get going. I think it's super fun to bring those units into IDBH. It's not too demanding like something like the LGE GT. It's not something that's crazily demanding or super difficult, but it is enjoyable, and it does allow you to kind of enjoy those units, to really use them, to see their attack stats, to get them going, and they really do a lot of damage. Units like Strength, Gogeta and the Tech Vegeta Blue, they do a really good amount of damage, and so I think it's really fun to do these kind of events where the units, they don't hit, it's like a nice middling difficulty. It's enjoyable, it's different, it's a different setting. It's not like constantly fighting Goku over and over and over again. It is a somewhat enjoyable setting, and it's really fun. So yeah, it's really cool from that angle. I do think, though, obviously, with it not being as tough an event, I like the conditional challenges they put in. Things like finish it in 24 turns. All those type of things I think are really great. In terms of Mr. Gohan, he's pretty much the same as Android 18. Can't lower his attack, can't lower his defense, immune to sealing, immune to stunning. He doesn't seem to have any specific gimmick just yet, but you can see how the pace at which we clear a boss is highly affected by the amount that we're critting from units like Kale, units like Caulifla. It's very dependent on how many of those crits we're getting. If we're getting 1 or 2 of Kale's crits in a row, 1 or 2 of Caulifla's crits in a row, then we're all of a sudden chunking through the enemies and really clearing them out. When we're not getting the crits, it looks like we're really struggling. In terms of how did the same name update affect this stage, obviously with all these IDBH stages, I think you definitely want to just clear out the stages as quickly as you can. You can use any essentially, I don't want to say any team, but essentially if your team can complete one of them, it can pretty much complete all of them for the most part, maybe with a change up here or there, as you improve your box and everything. And there's a lot of stones from these stages, even without factoring in the bonus missions. You're looking at 1, 2, 4, 6, 9, 12, 16, 20, 25 stones from this stage, and I think it's consistent throughout every single stage. And obviously the category missions are about 6, and then there's 1 bonus for finishing everything else. So you're looking at about 32 stones per stage. Obviously if you don't do the category missions, you're not going to get them, but we're looking at roughly 24 to 25 for just completing each event. And with there being, close to 14 or so stages now, obviously that's quite a fair chunk of stones. So for new players who maybe haven't looked at IDBH yet, it is something that's a little bit tough. For new players, obviously you need certain kinds of units, whether they be defensive stacking or you need certain kinds of leads. But once you have somewhat of a decent team, once you have a team that's finishing 1 or 2 or 3 of these, you should just go through and clear all of them and then come back and finish the category requirements at a later stage. That's really what's going to help you out. There's no real reason to be too concerned. Claiming the initial stones is worth way much more than making sure you do the category ones at the exact same time. And I mean, they are quite fun events to run when you want to test out new teams and things. So getting the category missions later on really doesn't seem like an issue to me. Obviously we're now at Vegeta, so immune to sealing, immune to stunning, no attack lowering, no defense lowering, and they've added on the ability for him to evade. Obviously at this point Vegeta is our biggest threat. So what we want to do is we generally want to try and take him out as quickly as possible, but obviously we're also going to probably use a Whis or something here if Vegeta is throwing too many attacks at one of our strength units, because that's really going to help us out in preventing a lot of the damage. I did actually do this event once and died specifically to Vegeta supering one of my strength units, so yeah, definitely something you do have to keep your eye out for. Other than that, if your rotation is featuring something like Kale and Caulifla and everything, it's not too much of an issue. But you can see there Vegeta is doing some significant damage to even, Tech Jiren, who's got type advantage and stuff like that. One of the things I have noticed with IDBH stages is that they tend to kind of apex the curve at around about the 3rd or 2nd to last boss. So the bosses, the last 2 or 3, don't generally hit way harder in terms of damage. They don't necessarily, dish out like 100 times more damage between the final boss and the 2nd to last boss. Or if they do, they are generally quite glass cannon. They don't generally tank very well. They take a lot more damage than the previous boss. So they do kind of curve the difficulty so that it kind of apexes around here with the AGL Vegeta, and then of course they either start adding in things like gimmicks or some more interesting mechanics that you need to be aware of, which I like. I think it's a pretty interesting call, that to basically make the fights somewhat more interesting rather than just constantly escalating the difficulty to a super hard supernova kind of like extent, kind of like the LGE GT and those things. That's kind of their job. We know that we have to keep progressing or keep chunking them down super quick, because if we don't, we're going to eventually get caught out by the upscaling and difficulty. Whereas this is somewhat more interesting. You can kind of zone in on these units and kind of just understand their gimmicks and everything without the fear of too much going on. We're going to use a Princess Snake here. Obviously, as I said previously, this is a turn where we're a little bit concerned, because if Kefla does not dodge, we're going to be in a little bit of trouble, and that's really one of those things. So yeah, but Kefla, we're going to activate her skill just so we can improve the amount of damage we're going to do. Her skill increases her damage and makes her attacks effective against all types for 1 turn. It also creates some orbs, and that's going to help us proc her full passive. So we realistically want to use it now because we need to chunk through Vegeta as quickly as possible. He is the biggest threat to our team. Once we're past Vegeta, things get a little bit easier for us. We have a lot less fear of insta-dying, considering the fact that there's no longer any massive type disadvantages that exist due to the fact that most of our team has guard against all type and things like that active. So yeah, just one of those things. Obviously Tech Jiren really helps here against this Vegeta. The fact that he essentially has type advantage really helps out with his monster attack stats. Obviously you notice Vegeta is lowering defense on his super attack, which is only for 1 turn it seems, so it's not too much of an issue, but yeah, it is something you just need to be aware of. If your unit catches a super attack, they're generally going to take quite a bit of damage afterwards, but we managed to clear out Vegeta, so now we're looking a little bit better. We're on to Android 17, and he is pretty interesting. Obviously he has the gimmick, well, he can't be sealed, can't be stunned, can't have his attack lowered, can't have his defense lowered, and he is immune to super attacks that are ki based. So ki blast super attacks, they have the little Kamehameha icon next to them. So if you go to your units card, if you take a look, like we'll open up Kale here. So if we open up Kale's card and you look there next to her super attack, you'll see a little Kamehameha there. If there's a Kamehameha there, that means it is a ki based super attack. We're fortunate in that our team is not rocking a lot of ki based super attacks, which is very helpful. It's one of the things that I went into this build with. So if you are someone who's rocking a lot of ki based super attacks, you're going to have a problem at this stage, obviously. It's something that you're going to have to keep in mind. One way to kind of counteract that, obviously, the only way really to counteract that is to take it into account beforehand. So it can be difficult, especially if you don't know how these fights go, to prepare your team for something like this. And it's something that can really go against the grain for a lot of units. But now they've added in quite a few varying super attack types, which is quite nice. It really helps flesh out some of the units that were struggling before, because it was a bit generic to kind of make everything either a ki blast or a non-ki blast based super attack, and now the fact that they've changed it up really helps out. It's weird, obviously we're firing a ki blast, but it's essentially the first point of contact. So if the unit like punches them first or anything, or starts a salvo of blows, and then you go into a ki attack, that basically means it's a physical attack. I know that makes no sense, because Goku will punch a guy like twice and then fire a instant Kamehameha that's like doing almost all the damage. But hey, look, I'm not someone to argue. Fortunately, he doesn't heal from the super attacks, so if you are firing only super attacks and you really don't want to restart, you can just wait until you build up a Dokkan attack. Dokkan attacks will ignore the super attack immunity that he has, but of course, the issue with that is that you're probably going to need more than 1 or 2 super attacks to really chunk him through. So if you're trying to complete the speed missions, you're not really going to succeed too well. I use a Whis here, more just to see how much damage we take. We're just trying to make sure that we're not taking too much damage. And I also forgot that we had a boss afterwards, but hey, whatever. But it's not too much of an issue. I don't think he would have done too much damage to us. Obviously, we still have pretty decent defense, and like I said, the scaling's not so high as with like an LG EGT or anything like that. It's not like Android 17 hits 14 times harder than the Vegeta before him. So yeah, nothing too crazy. Obviously, this is kind of going along the order of the show, I guess, in terms of how they got knocked out. But I mean, in reality, Android 17 never got knocked out, so I guess it's just a way for us to experience all the Universe 7 guys and see how they go. Obviously, we're gonna keep our team the same here. Kale and Caulifla are super stacked at this point. They're just going to allow us to consistently heal, so that's obviously a bonus from their side. And we're going to be able to take out Android 17 pretty easily. Obviously we had a lot of strength units, that does help, but also Kale is doing a large portion of damage. And now we'll go on to the final phase. So in the final phase against the LR, Goku and Frieza, we are basically, they are immune to sealing, immune to stunning, immune to attack lowering, immune to defense lowering, and they also lock evasion from other characters. So we don't really have the ability to rely on any of our units' evasion anymore. So what we're going to do is we're going to now make sure that we obviously pop our items when we can, keep ourselves in a safe situation, and kind of move on from there. The reason we've activated Jiren's active skill, even though am like 90% certain it still doesn't trigger. But basically, we're trying to max out our damage here. Obviously, we could have used Kefla's active skill for this part as well, but we did need to get through the AGL Vegeta phase as quickly as possible. This will give us a good idea of how much they're hitting for. Overall, obviously remember, Toppo does have guard against all types, so 28,000 or so is not too bad, especially since, Toppo's defense couldn't really go up or anything like that. Obviously, we just need to be aware that we do have Casserelle on rotation, so we do have a little bit of a defensive buff for Toppo there, but they don't look like they're hitting too hard, so we should be more than fine. Jiren's doing some nice damage, which is obviously always a positive, and so we should be fine to handle this event here. Obviously, one thing when you get to these stages is you just need to be as careful as possible with who's taking what at certain times. If you are concerned about a unit possibly dying or anything like that, or you are maybe suspicious of those 18 attacks right at the end of the rotation, rather just make sure that you either pop an item or that you keep the unit safe. As you can see here, we're kind of just going to take a look, see obviously how we go in terms of Jiren. Strength Jiren, obviously, if you guys remember, is not necessarily the strongest unit defensively, so he'll be a good representation of how much damage you can take in this stage. It doesn't look like Goku and Frieza have as much health or as defensively strong as some of the other units. You can kind of tell by how rapidly we're taking their health down. Obviously, we have stacked attack quite a bit to this point, and crits will help, but you can see that their health is going down quite not rapidly, but obviously at a decent clip. Even units like Caulifla, who are not doing a ton of damage, are essentially dealing some damage to them. You will see that they've managed to hit Caulifla. Obviously, that is how they work. They disable evasion, so even units like Tech Caulifla, who are usually Omega level defensive units, because of that evasion, can be hit. Of course, it's not too much of an issue for Caulifla because she stacks her defense, so her defense is stacked to a sufficient point. But for units like AGL MUI Goku, it might be a slight issue. If you don't have 1 or 2 dupes in him, his defense might be a little bit low. He also gains his defense on evasion, so if he's not evading, chances are he's probably not going to gain defense, which is obviously an issue. You'll see I'm using a Princess Snake here to be safe. That's because obviously remember, Kefla's evasion will not be active, so we do have to be aware that she can take hits. So because of that, you always just want to play it a little bit safe. Obviously we are more than fine. I think we'll easily clear him out in terms of damage. If Jiren gets a crit or anything like that, it will really help us out, but Jiren's essentially clearing a bar of health each time. Next rotation we're quite sufficiently strong from a defensive point of view, and we'll still be able to do some damage, so we should be okay to wrap everything up here. And obviously we're just going to miss out on the turn requirements, but that's okay. It's not the end of the world. We'll just come back and do that another time, or get it with another team. I mean, I do get it with another team. I usually take my Kamehameha team into this. Maybe I'll do a video showing them off at some point, because they're my go-to speedrun team. But yeah, pretty much should be able to see out the rest of this fight quite easily. Obviously at this point, Goku and Frieza don't seem like they evade or anything, so it is just pretty much a DPS race, and you should be fine. Like I said, Frieza and Goku don't look like they're hitting tremendously hard or anything. They don't look like they're throwing out bombs or anything. Obviously I have a very strong defensive side, so I don't want to comment too much on them not hitting hard. It's different for every player, it's different for every team build, but yeah, it seems like we have good control of this fight at this point, and we'll finish it up with an attack from Caulifla, and everything will wrap up quite nicely. So yep, that is the stage 12 versus representatives of Universe 7. and we will take a quick look at the missions and wrap everything up from that point of view. But overall, I think the event was pretty fun, pretty nice. There were some nice gimmicks on the units at the end. I think the super attacks on Android 17 is a nice touch. I hate when they regen from them, but I think making him immune is quite fair. It means that you at least need to factor something in for late game builds and everything like that. So that's quite interesting. You'll see there we get our clear bonus and everything, and we can take a look at the team. But yeah, I think, beyond that, I think everything went perfectly fine. I think it went smooth. I think everything was relatively in control with that team. So if you want to copy that team, you're welcome to. But like I said, there are a couple replacements that you can slot in for the category bonuses. But yeah, beyond that, I think everything was more than fine. I think the only real issue there in that team was Strength Jiren, and my Strength Jiren's really only got a single dupe in him. So there's definitely more that you can get out of Strength Jiren. And with him being the weakest unit, that's generally an okay sign. He's aged quite well, especially when he pairs with the tech one. But yeah, I think overall, a fun event. Nice to do, good way to earn some stones as well. If you want help with any other IDBHs, I do have guides for some of the others up. I'm working on slowly pushing out guides to complete all the missions on all of them, or all the category missions I should say, on all of them, with as many free-to-play non-LR units as possible, as always. So yeah, definitely something you should check out if you're a new player, or if you're someone who hasn't done them or anything. It's definitely a nice way to earn some stones. So yeah, as you can see, we've got a whole bunch of missions completed here, and yeah, that's pretty much it from me, guys. So yeah, as always, I hope you guys are doing well. Let me know in the comments down below if you are struggling with the IDBH or any other ones. And yeah, as always, I'll see you in the next one. But until then, stay safe, cheers, and bye.